In the year 1989, scientist Hank Pym resigns from S.H.I.E.L.D. after discovering their attempt to replicate his Ant-Man shrinking technology. Believing the technology to be potentially dangerous if replicated, Hank vows to conceal it for as long as he lives. In the present day, Hank's estranged daughter, Hope Van Dyne, and former protege, Darren Cross, have forced him out of his company, Pym Technologies. Darren is close to perfecting a shrinking suit of his own, the Yellow Jacket, which horrifies Hank. Upon his release from prison, Scott Lang, a well-meaning thief, moves in with his old cellmate, Luis. Scott visits his daughter Cassie unannounced, on her birthday, and is chastised by his former wife Maggie and her police detective fiancé, Paxton, for not providing child support. Unable to hold down a job because of his criminal record, Scott agrees to join Luis' crew and commit a burglary. Scott breaks into a house and cracks its safe, but only finds what he believes to be an old motorcycle suit, which he takes home. After trying the suit on, Scott accidentally shrinks himself to the size of an insect. Terrified by the experience, he returns the suit to the house, but is apprehended by the police on his way out. Hank, the homeowner, visits Scott in jail and smuggles the suit into his cell to help him break out. Hank, who manipulated Scott through an unknowing Luis into stealing the suit as a test, wants Scott become the new Ant-Man to steal the Yellow Jacket from Darren. Having been spying on Darren after discovering his intentions, Hope and Hank train Scott to fight and to control ants. While Hope harbors resentment towards Hank about her mother Janet's death, he reveals that Janet, known as the Wasp, disappeared into a subatomic quantum realm while disabling a Soviet nuclear missile in 1987. Hank warns Scott that he could suffer a similar fate if he overrides his suit's regulator. They send him to steal a device that will aid their heist from the Avengers headquarters, where he briefly fights Sam Wilson. Darren Cross perfects the Yellow Jacket and hosts an unveiling ceremony at Pym Technologies headquarters. Scott, along with his crew and a swarm of flying ants, infiltrates the building during the event, sabotages the company's servers, and plants explosives. When he attempts to steal the Yellow Jacket, he, along with Hank and Hope, are captured by Darren, who intends to sell both the Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man suits to Hydra. Scott breaks free and he and Hope dispatch most of the Hydra agents, though one flees with a vial of Darren's particles and Hank is shot. Scott pursues Darren, while the explosives detonate, imploding the building as Hank and Hope escape. Darren Cross dons the Yellow Jacket and attacks Scott before he is arrested by Paxton. Darren takes Cassie hostage to lure Scott into another fight. Scott overrides the regulator and shrinks to subatomic size to penetrate Darren's Yellow Jacket suit and sabotage it to shrink uncontrollably, presumably killing him. Scott disappears into the quantum realm but manages to reverse the effects and returns to the macroscopic world. Out of gratitude for Scott's heroism, Paxton covers for Scott to keep him out of prison. Seeing that Scott survived and returned from the quantum realm, Hank wonders if his wife is alive as well. Later, Scott meets up with Luis, who tells him that Wilson is looking for him. In a mid-credits scene, Hank shows Hope a new Wasp prototype suit and offers it to her. In a post-credits scene, Steve Rogers and Wilson have Bucky Barnes in their custody. Unable to contact Tony Stark because of the Accords, Wilson mentions that he knows someone who can help.
Two years after Scott Lang was placed under house arrest due to his involvement with the Avengers, in violation of the Sokovia Accords, Hank Pym and his daughter Hope Van Dyne briefly managed to open a tunnel to the quantum realm. They believe Pym's wife Janet Van Dyne might be trapped there after shrinking to subatomic levels in 1987. When he had previously visited the quantum realm, Scott had unknowingly become quantumly entangled with Janet, and now he receives an apparent message from her. With only days left of house arrest, Scott contacts Pym about Janet, despite the strained relationship they have because of his actions with the Avengers. Hope and Pym kidnap Scott, leaving a large ant with Scott's ankle monitor on as a decoy so as not to arouse the suspicions of FBI agent Jimmy Woo. Believing the message from Janet is confirmation that she is alive, the trio work to build a stable quantum tunnel so they can take a vehicle to the quantum realm and retrieve her. They arrange to buy a part needed for the tunnel from black market dealer Sonny Birch, but Birch realizes the potential profit to be made from Pym's research and double-crosses them. Donning the Wasp outfit, Hope fights off Birch and his men until she is attacked by a quantumly unstable masked woman. Scott tries to help fight off this ghost, but the woman escapes with Pym's lab, which has been shrunk down to the size of a suitcase. Pym reluctantly takes Hope and Scott to visit his estranged former partner Bill Foster, who gives them a way to locate the lab. After they find it, the ghost captures the trio and reveals herself to be Ava Starr. Her father, Elihaz, was another of Pym's former partners who died along with his wife during an experiment that caused her unstable state. Foster enters and reveals that Ava is dying and in constant pain as a result of her condition. They plan to cure her using Janet's quantum energy. Believing that this will kill Janet, Pym refuses to help them and escapes with Hope, Scott, and the lab. Opening a stable version of the tunnel, Pym, Hope, and Scott are able to contact Janet, who gives them a precise location to find her but warns that they only have 2 hours before the unstable nature of the realm separates them for a century. Using a truth serum, Birch learns the trio's location from Scott's business partners Luis, Dave, and Kurt, and informs a contact at the FBI. Luis warns Scott, who rushes home before Wu can see that he is violating his house arrest. Pym and Hope are arrested by the FBI, allowing Ava to take the lab. Scott is soon able to help Pym and Hope escape custody, and they find the lab. Scott and Hope distract Ava while Pym enters the quantum realm to retrieve Janet, whom he finds alive. Meanwhile, Scott and Hope are confronted by Birch and his men, and following a lengthy chase across San Francisco, Ava regains control of the lab, allowing her to begin taking Janet's energy by force. Luis, Dave, and Kurt incapacitate Birch and his men so that Scott and Hope can stop Ava. Pym and Janet return safely from the quantum realm, and Janet voluntarily gives some of her energy to Ava to temporarily stabilize her. Scott returns home once again, in time for a now suspicious Wu to release him at the end of his house arrest. Ava and Foster go into hiding. In a mid-credits scene, Pym, Scott, Hope, and Janet plan to harvest quantum energy to help Ava remain stable. While Scott is in the quantum realm doing this, the other three turn to dust.